Hello and welcome. I'm Pamela Tripp-Melby, a member of the Board of Directors of the Lubuto Library Partners. And on behalf of all of us at Lubuto, I would like to welcome you to this event, Beyond Buildings and Books. We have been very grateful for the expressions of concern and support we've received since the reading room at the Lubuto Model Library in Lusaka, Zambia, was destroyed by fire on April 11th. And many of our supporters have asked how they can help. We'll talk about all of that today. The children in the community were devastated by the loss, a tangible and touching sign of the important role that the library plays in their life. We are here today to share the story of how our resilient team is restoring the library infrastructure to serve Zambia's young people better than ever. And we'll also talk about the role that you can play in strengthening the human resources that will bring back and sustain the library services that are so sorely missed by the children. Presenting this remarkable story of Beyond Buildings and Books today are Jane Kinney Myers, the founder and president of Lubuto Library Partners, and likely needing no introduction to those of you who have joined us here today. We will also hear from Given Bessa, who has been with Lubuto since 2013 and is the very capable manager of the Lubuto Model Library. Bessa has a double major in Library and Information Science and Public Administration from the University of Zambia. In 2017, she was selected as one of 19 African librarians to participate in the very first Young African Library Innovators Initiative, a year-long program that exposes emerging public library innovators in Africa to experiences and ideas from other developing and transition economy countries. We will also hear from Eleni Karomvali, the proprietor of an architecture and urban design firm in Zambia, who designed and managed construction of 6 Lubuto libraries, including the Model Library. She holds a Bachelor of Architecture from the National Technical University of Athens and a master's degree in City and Regional Planning from UC Berkeley, where she advanced to candidacy for a PhD in architecture. At Berkeley, Eleni was a student of Christopher Alexander, who developed an approach to design based on creating a pattern language. After moving to Zambia, she became an expert on the country's indigenous architecture, which informs the patterns of Lubuto's library's designs. And Lauren Chitty, a program analyst for the U.S. Agency for International Development, with the American Schools and Hospitals Abroad, ASHA, initiative, who has been associated with ASHA's assistance in building Lubuto libraries since 2014. I want to acknowledge Elizabeth McLean, a knowledge and information management professional who's behind the technical production of this Zoom webinar, with assistance from Lubuto's program associate, Michael Fergand. During the presentations, please put any comments or questions you may wish to ask into the chat, and Michael will read them for the speakers after the presentations. We want to make this as interactive as the Zoom webinar platform will allow. So I will now turn the program over to Jane to start our story.
Thanks, Pamela. I received a call around 9 a.m. on Sunday, April 11th, at my home here in Washington, D.C., from Lubuto's director in Zambia, Hadassah Kasakumya, telling me that the main building of our flagship library in Lusaka had been destroyed by fire. The roof and interior, including furnishings and the library's book collection, were completely lost. Our staff and the community were in shock and devastated. Little did we know that in just a few weeks we would come to see this event as a kind of a blessing in disguise. My colleague Bessa and I have a story to share with you. I want to start with a brief background on our 16 years of developing public library services and facilities for children and youth in Zambia that particularly target the most vulnerable, out of school, and marginalized young people. Lubuto was founded to serve a generation of children in the 1980s and 90s affected by the ballooning HIV/AIDS crisis, orphaning Zambian children at the highest rate in the world and leaving children exposed without common spaces or access to education, without hope. Since our first library opened in 2007, Lubuto Libraries have served nearly 170,000 children in over 1,650,000 visits. Sorry, I'm having problems advancing. I want to start with a brief background. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm having a little problem advancing the slides. I'll get this fixed. The library we are discussing today, the Lubuto Model Library, had an average of 2,500 visits per week, by far the most visited public library in Zambia, and offering beloved and needed services typical of the best public libraries. The range of things good public libraries do these days that I believe most of you in our audience will recognize. As a snapshot of where this library was by the end of 2019, I want to quickly flip through these slides that were prepared at the time to show community leaders why so many of their children came to the model library every chance they got. These slides show the story of how it was at that library up until March of 2019. So we have large numbers of children visiting them, and we were wanting to show here the community what it is they do when they come to this library. So of course, as everyone expected, lots and lots and lots of reading, being read to, being taught to read, and going out into the community with outreach, but also sharing ideas in book clubs with younger children, getting homework help, and giving young people a voice, speaking out, dreaming big, and speaking up. Using technology, of course, in the library's tech hub, including boys and girls learning coding and computational logic. Art instruction for all ages, taking inspiration from books and life experiences and using art to teach about science. Developing talents in drama, music, and dance, entertaining the community, giving youth a means of expression, and even launching acting careers. Teaching young mothers to read and write in English while providing needed childcare. And early childhood programming with the plan at that time, at the end of 2019, of a new early literacy center coming. Keeping youth safe, healthy, and happy, and mentored, including with inspiring field trips. Enjoying movies, games, and other enriching activities. And yes, Black Panther, what has always been a particularly popular one in our libraries. The library frequently hosts special events and visitors. And twice weekly community outreach ensures all children know Lubuto is a place for them. So that was the library up until March of 2019. And while Bessa and her team were used to adapting and protecting young people from endemic health challenges, COVID-19 took the whole world by surprise. Still, our resilient and caring staff team and creative team adapted, and through mentoring, stories, art, song, and dance, continued to nurture and instill faith and hope in the children. But we never expected the fire of April 11th. And the children never did either, but I'll let Bessa tell that story.
Thank you so much, Jane, and hi to all the listeners out there. So on Sunday, April 11th at 12:15 p.m., I received a call from Mrs. Kalaula, a teacher who lives at the nearby Ngwerere's school teacher's residence, who told me that the reading room was on fire. Later on, a few children who live in the community also called me, and a member of library staff did call me as well. It is believed that the fire could have started around 11:30 a.m. So I rushed immediately to the library, which was closed because it was a Sunday, and I found that the grass covering the roof had fallen off and the door to the reading room had been broken. So community members had jumped over the fence and broke the door to the reading room to try to save some of the items. There, especially the books. Then the fire brigade arrived. They couldn't climb over the fence like the youths in the community had done. So they had to break the locked gate to get into the library. The fire brigade took over 3 hours to put out the fire. It was a huge, huge fire. Eventually, community members and children were dispersed by the half dozen of Lubuto staff members who had come. So Eleni on the left side, the architect who had designed and built the beautiful reading room 11 years earlier, came to analyze the damage and began to plan a way forward. So the fire brigade later interviewed the people who got to the scene first, which included the Ngwerere school guard, the school staff, and the 3 Ngwerere school students who were the ones who had broken the reading room door and rushed in and saved what they could. Actually, this picture was taken the following day when the fire brigade came to do further investigations. So around 500 books were salvaged, and many are in good condition to be retained in the library. Actually, the kids who saved the books were really proud, and as Ibudo, we were also proud of them for doing what they did. It was determined that the fire was set accidentally or deliberately on the roof by one or more youths who had scaled the wall of the library. They were seen fleeing by the community members after the fire had started. The burnt out reading room was a hideous and horrifying sight to all of us. But the children's reaction were heartbreaking. This is what some of them had to say about it. So I'll just read through what the kids' reactions were. So the first one says, I only heard the news of the library being burnt on the news. I came to see the library the following day because I felt bad. So these are actually our regular library users. We've known them for years. So these are good friends. They usually come, the 2 of them. And this day it was unfortunately, and this is what they had to say. Immediately after we heard about the library being burnt, we rushed to see what was happening. It was sad to see the library in flames. And this one is my good friend. He troubles me a lot when it comes to the library. But on this day, it was sad. And this is what he had to say. I felt bad about the library because I enjoy coming to watch movies and play on the computers. I miss the library. First it was Corona, now the fire. So this one says, I'm hurt because I can't come and read. So a lot of kids actually express themselves in different ways. The children were so hurt, had so many questions. They needed us. So kids were not just hurt, they were actually also frightened, just like us adults. So I'll read through the quotes, the voices, I mean the reactions from the kids again. Why was the library banned? That's the first one. Are you going to build another library? I wasn't there when the library was being burnt, but I was shocked to see a library in that state with no books. I think the boy came when everything was swept through. Yeah, it was really disappointed. I felt bad that the library is no more. I don't think I'll forget this day, especially seeing the books being burnt to ashes. The last one says, I saw the library in flames. I wish it wasn't burnt because we no longer have a library. So these were the reactions from the children. So as librarians, we knew what we had to do to help them. So James sent a recommendation that we read the book Our Babies by Martin Wado to them. Actually, that's me in the picture reading to the kids. So they loved it so much. They loved the book so much and asked me to read it again and again. I think I read it on the first day. I read it more than 3 or so, or even 4 times. So we camped out in the nurturing space in the midst of the burnt books and roof and read other favorites to the children in the following days. So this one is Alice. She's a mother of 2. So she's a young mother who learned to read in Brenda's family literacy program. She was sad to lose her favorite library book, which she had learned of when the author came to speak at the library. So miraculously, it turned out to be one of the books that survived. So we could get it into our hands right away. So this woman is also a member of our scholarship program. Her life was turned around by the Lubuto's program, and we're not going to let that dreaded fire stop us. We won't. So one of our young poets, this is Naomi Naulapa, one of our young poets, expressed her feelings as she had learned to do at our library. Actually, Naomi Naulapa has been our patron since the library was officially open. So I've seen her actually grow. And when I saw her post, I was really touched. And I saw that she actually meant what she said there. But I liked the part where she said, you removed fear and gave me the spirit of I can do it. And I know she meant what she said. But of course, I called and comforted her and assured her of what is coming. Yeah. So Lubuto's art teacher Ernesto, as he always has, guided the children to express their feelings and thoughts through art, starting with expressing his own horror at the site. So this is Ernesto's painting, and I don't think I need to add any words. I think the picture speaks for itself. Yeah. So I'll read, these are our Lubuto art children, and I'll just read through their expression. Of course, they express through art, but I'll read what they also said. So I felt sad because the library was the only place I could be free, read books, and play games. My heart was broken after I heard that the news from my friends. The library was a place I could watch movies, do drama, and read books. I felt bad because the library was the place I learned to read and where I would play on computers. Yeah. So it hurts to see the place where you can learn skills, get actually bent. This place that is beneficial, this place for hope, our place, and it breaks my heart to see all the books gone. And the other one says, I felt bad after I heard that the library was on fire. I rushed to come and see for myself the place where I used to come and read and play games. I was sad to hear that the place I come to do my homework was on fire. All the books I loved are gone. So these were the expression from the children. I'll let Jane continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Bessa. The fire destroyed the roof and all interior furnishings of the library's reading room, destroyed most of the 4,000 plus volume collection and one desktop computer. But the most important fact about the fire is that no one was injured, and a widespread outpouring of support from the community made evident the deep importance and impact the reading room had. It was perhaps never more appreciated than when it was no longer there. But here's the thing. At the time of the fire, we knew that we had received a grant. We received grant funding from the U.S. Agency for International Development's American Schools and Hospitals Abroad program, known as ASHA, to transform this library by constructing new buildings to support early childhood programming, a dedicated space for teenagers, another space for community meetings and training, a hub for data gathering, and storage and sanitation facilities. This already existing grant also provided funds to extensively renovate the reading room to accommodate new programming, as well as to replace the thatched roofs of all the existing buildings and to extend the existing perimeter wall around the library compound. The ASHA grant also provided for a purchase of a completely new book collection from local publishers and our international book supplier, as well as new technology, early learning supplies, and equipment to support disability programming, among other things. And much of the book collection, the computers and early learning toys had already been purchased with those ASHA grant funds and were already on their way to Zambia by ship when I heard of the fire, thanks to another important partnership with World Vision. And we just learned last week that the shipment has arrived. We are now busy inventorying the equipment and cataloging the books at our office. We now sought to work with ASHA to see if it was possible to revise our renovation and construction budget to allow for rebuilding the reading room and making security and safety improvements to the rest of the library. As long as all of the budget reallocations supported the purpose for which the funds were granted, we could propose a plan that could fit within the approved budget. The major adaptations we made were changing all of the library's roofs from thatch to steel, better securing the perimeter wall around the library grounds so that it could not be scaled, and installing an electronic fire alarm and security system. ASHA was incredibly helpful and supportive. And when we submitted the plan, it quickly got environmental and engineering approvals, and we were able to work out the remaining details to receive final approval on May 13th in just 1 month. But the necessary transition away from that lovely thatched roof that everyone who has ever sat under it loved has been emotional for all of us. Many people who have been there commented on how wonderful it was sitting in the talking circle and looking up at it, being enveloped by that beautiful roof. And as you can imagine, This was most difficult for its designer, Eleni, but I'll let her tell you about that.
Thank you, Jane. It's true that Sunday when I received the telephone call that the reading room was burning, I was thankful because nobody had been hurt, but I knew almost instantly that the roof could not be thatched again. And because although I felt confident that the electrical installation could not have been the origin of the fire, but the roofing material, which was the thatching and elephant grasses, allowed it to grow huge and consume the interior of the building. That was not the first time that I had considered changing the roofing material of the library buildings. Although thatch is wonderful because of its plasticity, its thermal and sound insulation properties, and its environmental behavior, because it's a natural material, totally biodegradable, it does require much more frequent and expensive maintenance compared to other roofing materials for it not to become a fire hazard, especially if one does not control external factors. I then felt clearly and with a sinking feeling that I could not take the risk of installing, we could not take the risk of installing a thatched roof again, especially because access to the library buildings was not yet secured enough and external dangers not ruled out. It's interesting that the first people I met upon arriving at the library the day of the fire were two members of the Nguerere School PTA. And as we stood there watching the firefighters extinguishing the flames of the remaining burning areas, they asked me if I had given thought at all to changing the roof, because as they put it, thatch is not being appreciated in a rough environment like the one in garden compound. That was for me, further confirmation that this library should be rebuilt with a different roofing material. And more confirmation kept coming in the next days from Jane, the Ministry of General Education, and other people. Still, there was in my heart and mind one condition that had to be met as the roofing material of the building changed. The timber roof frame had to remain the same. And because as Jane very nicely put it, the roof frame, especially of the reading room, is one of the most successful characteristics of the library. The reading room we see here, although we don't see the interior structure, there are 10 big timber columns which stand around and over the talking circle. And they are connected on their tops with round beams which form 2 decagons on 2 different levels. There are 20 rafters and numerous purling and cross ties, all out of treated eucalyptus timber. So we used the render soon enough, which showed us, okay, this is the structure of the roof as it was, and the one, that is so good, so successful, and would like to keep. In the render that we did, we saw, if we can see the render, yes, it's a rudimental, it's just a basic one. This showed us that it is possible to build a new roof over the same timber frame using steel roofing sheets instead of glass. The new roof will no longer be a cone like in the thatch with the one thatch, but it will be a 10-side pyramid like we see here. And it's possible to keep, especially underneath, the original feeling. The metal roofs were first introduced in colonial times in Zambia. And they are by now, they are quite widespread, both in urban and rural areas, both in low and high cost construction. And in that sense, they are a frequent feature of the Zambian landscape, strongly embedded in local culture. For the library, the metal seats to use will be galvanized and factory color coded, and the maximum thickness actually will be strong enough, 0.8 millimeter thick. Thermal and moisture insulation layers will be added to significantly reduce the easy transmission of heat and sound from which a metal roof suffers. A layer of fire retardant plywood will serve to protect and conceal the insulation sheets from below, and that thus maintain also the natural feeling of the interior, which will look more or less the way it looked when touched the roof. This kind of roofs will be installed in all the library buildings of the model library, both existing and new. Now, regarding the need for increased security of the library premises, we have decided that the new perimeter wall, which was planned to be built anyway, will be taller than the existing. And in addition, on each top, anti-climb security wires will be installed to a total height of about 3.5 meters. And we believe that will make it really very difficult, not impossible, to intruders to climb the wall. Inside each of the library buildings, there will be electronic security systems installed with alarm, which will go off if smoke or motion are detected. I would also like to mention that we anticipate that the library will remain partially open for a variety of programs during construction and as COVID regulations allow. Because all Lubito libraries actually, in all Lubito libraries, the buildings, the short walls, trees, covered areas, and seats are used and placed in a way that they form positive outdoor spaces. And in those outdoor spaces, these outdoor spaces are utilized for small gatherings where programs can be offered, the regularly programs of the library. And this pattern, which the Lubito libraries use, is derived from traditional, actually, living in Zambia, where due to a mild climate, living takes place mostly outdoors.
Thanks, Eleni. I hope it's clear to everyone now that the library will be dramatically better than prior to the fire. So we will literally be building back better. The work commenced immediately, starting with the wall so that the site could be secured and made safe for children's use in specified areas. Because, as Eleni has described, Lubito libraries have large outdoor spaces between the buildings that support various functions and programs, just as during the coronavirus shutdown, beloved and needed programs can continue in other spaces. So Ernesto has kept the art program going, as you can see here with this more recent Voice of Lubito. Children are beginning to feel much more encouraged. Brenda continues her life-changing family literacy program with young mothers. Kenny Howe is back to working with his drama group on a new song about a fire that couldn't keep Lubito down. Vesa continues the beloved story time, no longer surrounded by debris and burned books. And even little Patience could come back and enjoy the popular story time book, Little Beauty, on her own. We sent word out about right after the fire about how the children in the community had been devastated by the loss, a tangible and touching sign of the important role that library plays in their lives. While we didn't ask for funds for rebuilding, a number of people sent donations right away, and many of our supporters have been asking how they can help. As you have seen, ASHA has been just an amazing partner for our physical infrastructure and resources such as the book collection and computers, but they do not provide operational support, which is what we need in order to our excellent staff, volunteers, and logistics, basically to do our work. I'd like to pause here and ask that our partner from USAID ASHA, Lauren Chitty, share a few words with us about ASHA's objectives and why they support the work of Lubbuto Libraries.
Thank you, Jane. The American Schools and Hospitals Abroad, or ASHA initiative, is a public diplomacy program within the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. Our goal, in accordance with our congressional mandate, is to foster mutual understanding between the people of the U.S. and people of foreign countries. ASHA undertakes this work by partnering with schools, hospitals, and libraries that promote American values and ideals overseas, such as Lubbuto Libraries. As Jane mentioned, ASHA funding does have some restrictions around it. We're able to support construction and renovation activities, as well as the acquisition of durable commodities. And we do this specifically with and for overseas institutions that promote values that Americans hold dear. The Lubbuto Libraries are a shining example of American innovations and best practices in librarianship and increasing Zambian understanding of American values such as free and open access to information, gender equity and youth empowerment, civic engagement, inclusivity, and the building of a resilient civil society. ASHA is pleased and proud to partner with Lubbuto Libraries and have been actively doing so since 2014.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you to all of our presenters. As you can see, the Lubbuto team and its partners are already hard at work rebuilding the buildings and the book collection. As we all know, however, libraries are more than buildings and books. The delivery of the library services by the resilient and caring staff is always dependent on financial support from individuals. So to the many supporters who have asked what they can do to help, please consider ways you might help Lubbuto raise funds that can sustain our operations. That might mean becoming a sustaining subscriber yourself and encouraging others to do so. A monthly donation can make a difference to a very small but hardworking organization like Lubbuto. And there's a link to Lubbuto's donate page in the chat. It might mean participation in a workplace giving program, or Facebook fundraisers, or maybe helping us expand our donor base through your own personal networks, or even helping us organize a fundraising event. Zambia's most vulnerable children rely on Lubbuto to give them a place to play, read, learn, and gather. And they and we appreciate whatever support you can provide. Together, we will come back to serve Zambia's young people better than ever and to restore their dreams. And leaving you with that message, I'm going to ask Michael if there are any questions for our panel of speakers.
Thank you so much, Pamela. Yeah, so we have one question now, but if anyone else has questions, you can write them in the chat box. Our question is from Anthony Bernier, who's on our Library Service Advisory Council and a big supporter. And he's wondering, are there opportunities for children to participate in building back tasks?
Ooh. Anthony, you always ask the best questions. I hadn't. Bessa, do you have any ideas about that? Or Eleni, actually? You who are closer to the building back. And Eleni, you, with your experience of building so many Lubbuto libraries in the past?
Something, can I be heard?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Something that just comes to my mind. You know, we incorporate built-in ornaments in our libraries, in the exterior walls, but in many surfaces. Some could be painted, some could be built in, actually, in the plaster and permanent. Sometimes we cut them on the shades for the lights, the reflectors, wherever something is needed. So maybe, I don't know if what Bessa, how Bessa, or with Ernesto, we can, you know, he can have a workshop with the kids, or sort of guide them there, explain the task to them, and they can come up with patterns. It would be lovely. In the first library we built, Jane, I hope you remember it. I had the children even leave their hand marks, which we filled with a different color plaster, so that they are there. And they were excited to do that. There was children
Yeah.
who were living then at Fountain of Hope off the street.
Yeah, I think that can be done. I remember last time we had that kind of activity. It was exciting for most of the kids. I think that is possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe
And the-
other things will come up. Yeah.
Bessa, remembering how you've told us recently that you really enjoy planting trees. And Eleni, you remember having involved children in the landscaping of libraries in the past. Right now, especially as Zambia is really suffering the effects of climate change, that could be a really wonderful thing for you to lead with the children in planting trees around the site and other lands, right?
Yeah.
I would be happy to do that. Yeah.
Okay, we have a few more questions now. One is from Ephraim Banda, wondering if there's a program to restore the book collection with titles that the library had before. And yeah, I mean, generally, Asha is helping us to, we already have a new collection that has made it to Zambia now, as discussed. Or anything else to add to that?
I mean, as Bessa well knows, we work together with other staff members to already build the collection that has literally just arrived in Zambia. And there is a second order on its way and a third one afterwards. We immediately, with our ASHA funds, purchased new copies of all of the local publications that had burned, or we always need more copies of those as well. And of course, we've also been involved with things to preserve things, some of the wonderful Zambian literature that is out of print. And that fortunately, because it lives in the virtual world, was not harmed by the fire. So yes, absolutely. The classic literature that is beloved, that we have in every Labuto library, was of course part of the core collection. We are limited by the same limitations of libraries everywhere, that we often find that there are items that go out of print. But in general, that has turned out to be more of a problem with some of the Zambian publications, but we are doing whatever we can within copyright restrictions to be able to bring back all of these beloved books. And Bessa can just recount off the top of her head what many of them are. I mean, you work in it. So, yeah.
Okay, we have another question that's, is there any matching funds for rebuilding after the fire?
Not in particular, but you know, there's at least one of our generous donors had asked if they would like their donation to be a match to encourage other people to donate. And I have to say, I myself kind of demurred, because I think everybody does support us, has supported us, or will be supporting us, pretty much knows that whatever contribution comes in, especially for a small organization like us, whether it is matched by other generous donors, we certainly want the donation and need the maximum donation people are willing and able to give us. So we haven't really approached fundraising for this particular purpose in terms of matching.
And we do have one question about whether or not someone can make a monthly donation, and absolutely, I'm posting the link in again, and that is really helpful for us to have these recurring donations. It's a really essential part of the Lobuto family to have those. We greatly appreciate it.
And when your monthly donation comes in, you will be hearing directly from that very Michael, and he will tell you as an insider, as a member of the Lobuto family, he'll be keeping you abreast of all of the insider information that, because Lobuto seems to always have a lot going on all the time, and we think it's pretty exciting to share with our supporters. So welcome to the I didn't see the chat message, but we'd love to. We're very eager to welcome you to the family.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we have one more question now, which is, are there plans to make similar improvements to the branches of the Lobuto libraries in other Zambian cities?
To the existing libraries, is that?
Yeah, to the existing libraries. Yep.
Eleni, would you like to?
There is already, there is a request for funds to do a major improvement, right? In our rural, the most rural library. No, that's the rural library. But of course, I would say yes, there is space, especially in the aftermath of the fire and all the security measures now that we have increased, and the safety measures. So yes, I would say there are changes that we have started discussion. They go all the way from roofs, and down to the furniture. So I guess in good time, because of course funding has to be sourced for all of this.
Right. One thing that is very true that we've talked about a lot is that security issues differ greatly from library to library. The model library was perhaps in the most dense central urban area where there was perhaps more of a threat of this kind of activity happening. In rural Zambia, we learned early on with our first rural library that we didn't ever have to worry about books being stolen, for example. That just is not done by traditional rural people. So it really, really is a very different mindset between urban, peri-urban, and rural areas in that society. So this is by no means a cookie cutter approach. We've learned from each construction, we've learned a lot from this fire, and will continue to learn. The importance is having really great and well-trained staff in place to help us continually give us the feedback we need on both the facilities and the collections and services.
Great, thank you. If there are any more questions, you can post it now for any of the panelists. Well, and yeah, I'm going to read a few comments that we have while waiting. We'll just give it another minute or so. We have some great comments for Eleni. Sally Sen, our board member, said, "I am so glad that under your guidance, the beautiful structure will be reconstructed even better than before." And Anthony Bernier said, "Impressive building program responses. I was concerned about heat and sound of steel, but Eleni is on it." And she definitely is.
Hi. Yes, thank you. We'll try. We'll try. We'll try our best.
We just have a comment from Sarah Hyde saying, I absolutely love the Teen Empowerment Center and Early Childhood Center. Can't wait to visit again. Thank you for sharing all that you're doing to enrich children's reading journeys. Okay, we have another question. What is the biggest positive takeaway from the April 11th fire?
Positive.
I would love to say something. I think for me, as someone who's been involved on the board of Lubuto, hearing the children's voices and having them express what they felt they lost was really very moving for me. I was so taken with how quickly, they all came, they wanted to see what happened, and the disappointment that came through. And as Bessa said, the hurt, they really felt, sort of personally hurt by the fact that something that was very meaningful for them and to them had disappeared. And we would not have wished this to happen, but since it did, having them express what this meant has really, I think, for someone like me, reinvigorated my commitment to making sure that these programs continue and to do something to rebuild what the children felt they lost. So I think, again, while we would not have wished it to happen, and the work and effort to rebuild it, particularly at the time of the pandemic, but hearing their voices very spontaneously has been very moving.
Absolutely. We just have one more question. Is it possible to donate some leadership coaching books to Lubuto Libraries?
For our young, maybe you could contact me after this through the website, and we could talk about what that means. Our collections are very, very, very carefully built and designed, and so we would want to see what those titles are, how they would fit into the collection, etc. So let's talk. Could I add a little bit more to what Pamela said? There were a couple of things that struck me as the person that kind of, with Eleni so many years ago, talking about this since about the year 2000 or so, got this whole movement of Lubuto Libraries going. To me, one thing that has been, that certainly hearing from the children is far and away sort of the most important thing. One thing that we were saying when we were reading and hearing about what the children were saying is that they will never forget this. The children that saw this fire will remember this for the rest of their lives. And what they saw, I mean, I had a week or so later a meeting with our staff talking about using some character strengths that we have in our mentoring program to try to help the staff themselves understand the amazing work that they are doing, just as through their own human example, that what they are showing the children and what the children are showing of themselves, the ones that just came forward and took care of things, and as a result said they were so proud. So maybe, maybe many of the most important things you need to learn in life have to come from a painful experience, and this will remain with them always as a painful experience. But I just know that as something wonderful comes out of this, they will have learned, they will have gained something very important and enduring in their lives, and that the example of this wonderful staff and their their unwillingness to stop or be discouraged, and that they, above all, know that they are there to really help and comfort the children. To me, a really positive thing is for all of you who are listening to see the kinds of people that have been making Lubuntu Libraries very special places for a long time now. So I'm so proud of everybody.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to put in our donation link just one last time to support this amazing staff and the programs at this brand new reading room and beyond. If there's any last questions, I think we got through all of them.
Anybody else have anything they wanted to, any final thing they wanted to say?
Maybe I can just say, as staff on the ground, we really enjoy what we do. And I'm just grateful for your support, all the Lubuntu supporters. The support that you give us makes us move forward. So we are really grateful. That's what I can say. Yeah.
Great, well, thank you so much, everyone, for participating.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.